Welcome back to the Zyori Podcast. Hello, and thank you for joining us here on March 10th, 2015. It's about 6:15 p.m. here on the Pacific Coast, a fine Tuesday evening after a long day of Dota 2. Hello, and thank you for joining us again. There's Star Ladder going on right now, so if you're catching this live, you're one of the few that is not watching Star Ladder America right now. Oh boy, we have some interesting stuff to talk about this week. Actually a little bit light, so we'll see where it takes us. Maybe we'll find some interesting tidbits to pull out of Twitch chat as things continue on here. And of course, the subs are running here, so we may have some Taylor Swift dance parties that interrupt this here podcast. So first I want to talk about the games today. Some ridiculousness happened, and we're going to dive right into it. We talked about it on the stream a little bit earlier, but I want to talk about the pause situation in tournaments. This has been sort of a recurring issue, and today we saw it kind of take another form in Star Ladder. We had the second best of three today, the Dota versus Secret series. Star Ladder's group stage now all best of three. They did away with the best of one, so it's really nice. Obviously, a little bit of a one-sided matchup. Dota Gaming probably can't even name one player on that team, and then you've got Secret, the All-Stars, the team that only comes out of the shadows every so often. So, long story short, today there were a lot of lag issues. The servers were shit, people were DCing left and right, casters were getting dropped out of games, we were getting slideshows, it was just terrible. Some people were blaming that Cities game, Steam's been having issues going up and down, and who knows what the hell's going on. I guess somebody forgot to feed Sparky the Wonder Hamster, but regardless, it fucked up our Dota games. And game one was just a constant lag fest. Puppy played Chen, and he was DC'd for like 10, 15 minutes-ish. We stayed paused, we did some good filler, he tried to reconnect, all this stuff, and eventually we just had to resume. You know, that's the way to do it. We've talked about it before. We all understand why you have to make teams play 4v5 sometimes, because if you're losing and you don't have that rule, you can abuse it by pulling your plug. So we start playing 4v5, and then Arteezy starts disconnecting, and then all of a sudden it's 3v5. Secret's playing, they're up by 10,000 gold, 12,000 gold, literally playing 3v5. You've got one of their core players microing a Chen with all of his creeps. Pretty impressive. Secret's literally playing at like the biggest handicap you can imagine. Chat is just nothing but, why is this game still happening? Why is this not paused? Why is this a remake? Flame, fuck Star Ladder, all this stuff. So then it gets really interesting when Dota Gaming, who's kind of putting up an okay fight but staying consistently behind by a 5-figure amount, one of their players DCs, and it just so happens to be their Weaver, if I'm not mistaken. One of their core players, one of their core heroes. That was fucking terrible. It was really bad. So we're casting this game that ends up being a 3v4, and there just comes a point where you're like, why are we playing this game? Why is this why am I casting this like it matters? There's like, it's more of who has more micro skills at this point, and became very apparent that Dota Gaming did not quite have as much advanced micro skills, because the Weaver was doing next to nothing when he was DC'd, and the Chen Shadow Fiend on Secret actually did surprisingly well. For a little while, you would have thought Arteezy was actually playing it, and luckily players were sort of able to reconnect every so often, so Arteezy could pop in, spend all of his gold, buy a new item, he just right-clicks a BKB, and then DCs again, so his team can keep playing his hero. So Secret wins game number 1. It's kind of a shit show, whatever. We move into game 2. The teams take like 10 minutes to talk about with the admins. They decide, well, let's just try it. Maybe the servers are better, maybe we just had a bad server, whatever. So we try it, and during the draft, it starts with Dota first pick. They go first pick Tusk. Like, okay. And Dakota and I were kind of joking, like, are they going to draft, like, around heroes that are easy to play with lag if they have to play through this because of the way the tournament schedule is? And we were kind of joking, but it turned out that's sort of what they did. There was a Wraith King pickup, there was a Venomancer pickup, and then all of a sudden they fifth pick Techies. Like, okay, this is interesting. We called the Techies pick, and we're getting all hyped up. It's really fun. And they tried to do some tomfoolery around the Roche Pit. It ended up being a pretty fun game, and the final game didn't have any lag issues until about halfway through. The Ursa on Dota Gaming DC'd, and then I don't know if he couldn't reconnect, if he even bothered trying to reconnect, but he stayed DC'd through the duration of the game. It was pretty much the entire game. The core of the game was 4v5, and it was pretty clowny. They did Zai, who went off-lane Gyrocopter, and they played 4v5 for like 15 minutes while Zai just free-farmed, and then he shows up with an Aghanims and just starts killing people with call-downs. Zai ends the game with an Aghanims refresher. He's just like one-shotting people close to the end. It was ridiculous. It was a really fun game. It got really clowny, and I'm glad we got to cast it. But I was pretty frustrated at the end of game number 1, and I don't really understand why we had to play on. I think if one team is having DC issues, you can force it out. You can say, listen, it's your job to secure your connection. This is a remote event. We can't control what's going on your internet, so we have no way to verify what you're saying and that you're getting DDoSed or your computer's broken, or whatever it is. But when you have casters dropping out of the game, one team with 3 players, one team with 4 players, it is pretty apparent that there is something wrong with the servers or the state of Dota 2 at that point. Unless there's some crazy coordinated attack where both teams, the servers and the casters, are all getting DDoS, then I guess there's some sort of a crazy alternate universe where, wow, everybody needs to protect their connections because we're all idiots. But I just don't really buy that, especially because I know we're fairly secured. So it was very weird, and I felt bad for the teams. I was starting to get frustrated with it, but I'm glad we had fun games. They are on the YouTube, the BTS YouTube. They're tearing up the subreddit. I think this begs the bigger question, though, of not this individual situation, because it kind of worked out. You kind of know that Secret are the favorites unless something really, really, really crazy happens. And even 3v5 is about as crazy as it gets, and they still won. So Secret are obviously the better team, the upper dogs, and I think that's a reason why this particular situation didn't blow up or turn into a shitstorm. But if it was a more balanced matchup, if there was more on the line, it wouldn't have flown. And oh god, the jiggling cam. Sorry about that. I gotta stop leaning on the desk. It would not have flown. So how do we deal with this? That is the big question. And I've heard inklings about bets in Dota 2 Lounge, and that a lot of the DDoSing issues have to do with bets, where if there's a super value bet like that, 95-5 or 96-4, that people place huge value bets on one place or something and then try to DDoS once it becomes apparent that the upset's not going to happen, so they can get their items back, because bets do get canceled if there's extenuating circumstances, or however Dota 2 Lounge does it. So, yeah, I know, I'm shaking the table. It's bad. So, anyway, I don't know how you deal with this issue, and that's the really scary part, because this is something that is okay in an isolated situation if there was some circumstance where, for whatever reason, people weren't secured. But let's just say all of the players have their Skype secured, they're not leaking their IPs, they're not getting individually DDoSed, and it's just the Dota 2 servers. So for however the DDoSers, they know what server you're on, they're spamming the fuck out of it. Where does this take us to? Are we stuck playing on local lobbies for stuff that isn't local? I don't even think that's possible. Is it just like private servers offline, then we go to casting replays? I mean, this is a pretty serious issue that today just became so apparent that this is getting worse and worse, and tournaments are getting more and more kind of flack for not staying strict with the rules, not making sure teams follow schedules and all that kind of stuff. And it's hard. StarLadder gets put in this situation where they don't want to show favoritism to Secret by giving them an extended pause over 15 minutes. But then once another player DCs, they're like, well, what do we do? Do we reload? Do we start this game over? What's fair? And it just fucking sucks. It's just a waste of everybody's time. What DDoS? Google DDoS. That will tell you everything you need to know. I like that. I almost shit myself laughing earlier. The casting still maintained good quality. Yeah, I mean, luckily I was with Dakota for that. He is one of the best co-casters to be with when you're stuck in a shit situation like that, because he's just easy to have it back and forth with. He has that little Suns fan-esque kind of part to him where we can just talk about anything. We can talk about Dota, we can talk about other games and just bullshit around, and I feel like I could fill with Dakota for hours, and it would be pretty easy and fun. But I would be curious to see some sort of an experiment if the DDoSing issues and these server problems are actually related to bets. I've seen people post stuff like that on Twitter. I've seen the little cryptic like, I wonder why this game is so special. But I wonder if there's actual credence to that. If Dota 2 Lounge bets are really that serious that people are willing to DDoS servers and fuck everybody else over just to keep their items for their little local economy. If that's the case, then there's a pretty easy solution. We just stop putting matches on Dota 2 Lounge. Especially if they're big matches or the odds exceed beyond whatever that magic threshold is for people to start DDoSing. Probably like 85-15 or something is the biggest cap you could put on it. So I don't know. Anyway, it's a big issue. It was very frustrating today. I had fun casting through it, and today it worked out because it ended up having really fun games. That was the first game I got to cast with techies. I've been playing a lot of techies recently, and that was my first time actually casting a competitive game with techies where it mattered for something. We saw it. Was it at DAC where I think Secret picked it? for that really clowny game. Or we've seen it a couple times pop out, but it was the first for me. So that was really fun. It seemed kind of picture perfect given my recent stint with techies. I still get so excited every time I see somebody blow up on mines. And it was just a funny game with S4, like on Batrider, he's got a gem, he's killing mines, remote mines, and techies blows him up and he dies. He's just, oh shit, I was too close to the mines, what was I thinking? There were a lot of really cloudy things that happened in that game. My favorite was at like the 5-minute mark, when they tried to bait out. There was a Bloodseeker on Secret, and they had Wraith King and Ursa. So they tried to do Roche at like 5 minutes before Ursa had Lifesteal, just using the level 1 Vampiric Aura on Skeleton King. Interesting idea. I like that. You still don't do enough damage at that low level. You need a little bit more to it. But they had mines kind of protecting the pit from Roche, so they were trying to get low and then bait it in. So it's like, oh, we're doing Roche. Oh, no, we're failing. And the Bloodseeker comes cruising in, runs over the mines. Pretty next level shit. That's a fun kind of bait. I like that. It's really, really cheeky. Same thing they did at level 1 when we saw that fighter on the Roche pit. They brought the courier down, and they're like running this little not-upgraded courier around the mines. And, you know, it's a little bit obvious. Secret, of course, we're privy to it, but it's still a cool idea. I like the idea of trying to bait with, you know, go for that temptation play. Oh, courier, get it. So it was a really, really interesting game to cast. But of course, it backfired around the Roche pit. They both almost died once they got bashed by Roche, and then they had to run out of the pit, and Roche was still aggroed on them, so Roche blew up the mines. And then after the mines were blown up, Bloodseeker came in and just fucked all over them. So it was a disastrous game. It did not work out well for Duza, but I would give that team some credit. Both teams showed a remarkable amount of sportsmanship in terms of having to play through the shit circumstances. There was no public bashing, no public flaming. Nobody turned to Twitter or, you know, was flaming the admins. It was all done privately, so that was good to see. And I'm glad they had fun with it. You know, they could have just as easily said, all right, this is fucking stupid, you can just win. But instead, they put up a pretty cool game, let Zy do his amazing Ags Refresher homing missile gyrocopter, which ended up being a lot of fun to watch as well, and just kind of ridiculous. A lot of explosions that game. You know, you've got techie mines where people are just blowing up all over the place, and then you've got gyrocopter with like double call down refresher. He's just like, call down. Okay, call down, and it's just, he obliterates their entire team in an AoE with a massive explosion. Very, very satisfying spells to pick up kills with. Anyway, this was a long ramble about my anecdote of casting techies today, but I hope this is an issue that Valve can find some sort of a remedy to. And that's the really scary thing for those of us that are third parties here for Dota and casting and all the stuff that Valve does. We just have no control. We have no way to deal with this. We have no way to stop DDoSing on servers, and we're just stuck in these shit situations. So a little easier to deal with on LAN. You can use local lobbies and protect yourself a little bit differently. But when everyone's spread out remote doing online qualifiers, they're just there ain't no easy way to go about it. So moving forward here, that's pretty much all of the Dota talk that I have for this podcast, I think. Not too much other Dota stuff going on that I want to talk about here. Of course, we've been doing in the studio, more of the news show. Here to talk about interesting things that I can rant about. Apparently, Red Eye is stepping down from ESL. I saw this article about, it was posted like 5 hours ago or something, earlier today, which kind of blew my mind a little bit. Red Eye, he's been regarded as the host for Dota. He's not even a Dota guy. His first event, he's calling towers turrets, and despite all that, he won people over with his professionalism and that lovely accent. He's an amazing host. I'm curious what this means for him, though. I have not read all the details of this article. I just kind of skimmed it. I don't know. Is he leaving esports? Let me see here. I got to go through to pursue new opportunities. He's a true vendor of esports. It's been a great pleasure to have him as a part of the countless events we've shaped esports together. So it looks like, yeah, he's moving on to something different. He says he's done over 175 events over 13 years. Holy shit, this guy has been around the block. Damn, Red Eye is legit. I was made an offer to do something else in esports that will still allow me to contribute in a different way. Okay, so he's staying in esports. This will be announced soon. I'm not leaving esports, but it is the right time, I feel, to do something different. Okay, so I wonder who ESL is going to have to replace him. I guess he's in charge of talent. He's their director of talent, or whatever his official title was. So I wonder who they'll promote to replace him. That's an interesting position to have open. I mean, ESL has a lot of employees, so I'm sure there are plenty of people to choose from. So be very interested to see what he has in the works coming up next. I have a couple of little inklings in my head of where he may be going or other projects that he might be working on, but I'm not entirely sure in terms of things that I can talk about publicly here. Yep, there's the Dooza versus Secret on the front page of Reddit. I love it. Fucking Arteezy. Yeah, that was funny too when he reconnects in and says, "Hey guys, what's going on?" and then just pieces out. Okay, so he's a great host. Yeah, he really is. So who's going to replace him? That's really interesting. See, I was thinking at TI5, he would be one of the go-to people that Valve would think about, because James said at the end of the last year, I think it might have even been on In the Studio, that little podcast we did with him remotely afterwards, when he said that he wouldn't want to do what they did last time again. It was too stiff. He wants to do like a couch or do something a lot more casual, kind of EU hub style, do his James thing where he can kind of let loose and get the players a little more comfortable. So hearing that, knowing that Shiver's obviously vying for a lead host position, I'm not sure that they would choose her to be like the lead host. Maybe they would. She did a pretty good job last time and got at least a taste of what that panel is like. I thought Red Eye was the shoo-in of, yeah, he's not a dedicated Dota guy, but the community loves him as TI becomes bigger and more of a flagship for Dota in general, pushing further in the mainstream on ESPN, what have you. You probably want the best of the best talent being the host and really running the event. Maybe they'll still bring in Red Eye. Shit, maybe he just got hired by Valve. What the hell do I know? But if he's not going to be doing a lot of hosting work, then I wonder about the possibilities for TI5. I doubt the olive branch would be extended to me to be the host for the main event, but I would gladly do it. That would be a great honor, of course. I'm just hoping to cast TI5. You know, I wasn't at TI4. I didn't get a taste of that sweet, sweet nectar. I was there just, doing video content, doing the press. So I'm excited to have a chance here at this go around. So we'll see how it works out. Very interesting stuff. So, all right, moving forward here at the end of Dota stuff, we're going to keep going with esports, then I'm going to talk about some real-life things. So next up, Heroes of the Dorm. This was one of the most ridiculous announcements I saw coming out of PAX East this year. Of course, I wasn't able to go, which I was a little bit upset about. I've heard inklings about Blizzard this year that they really want Heroes of the Storm to be their premier esport. And right now, it's kind of Hearthstone. Hearthstone has blown up larger than anyone would have imagined. When Hearthstone was created, 2 PAXs ago? I was at the PAX when they announced it, and I remember hearing the press release right after it happened, and Blizzard saying, we just wanted to take the core concept of our games, the idea of a collectible card game, kind of piece it together, make something that's a little more casual, mobile-friendly, and basically see how it works out. They were not thinking, all right, we're going to make this blockbuster mobile game, we're going to give other CCGs a run for their money. They were more like, yeah, this is just something small that our little dev team put together. Let's see what happens. And people just, like, this is kind of cool. I love it. All of a sudden, people are grinding it. All of a sudden, there's tournaments popping up when there's no spectator mode even. And now it's this huge, crazy esport where you have streamers making absurd amounts of money. I've heard rumors that Blizzard is not so keen on that they really want Hearthstone to be their cool casual game that you play on mobile, and Heroes of the Storm to be their flagship run and gun. This is our esports game, hardcore competitive title for all those big time Blizzard fans that love grinding and doing all the stuff that Blizzard has proven it knows best. Jesus. So, I don't know how many of you have played Heroes of the Storm. I've talked about it on past podcasts. I do enjoy it. It's a fun game. I don't know about its competitive potential. It could be. It's very strategic, but the individual skill cap is just a little different. So anyway, that would mean that if Blizzard really wants to push it as their lead title, then they have to dump some money into it. We need a big tournament, and we need some sort of like a TI, an LCS, whatever this SPL, Smite Pro League, some sort of a huge blockbuster league that if it isn't crowdfunded, have some sort of a massive prize pool to really incentivize people playing. It just has to be worth their while. No one's going to be a full-time Heroes of the Storm player until there's enough money around the scene that you can commit to it full-time and, still pay the bills and have internet that'll let you connect to the servers. And it seems like Heroes of the Storm is becoming this collection plate, this kind of melting pot of people that tried to go pro in League and failed, washed up StarCraft players that just lost interest in StarCraft or gave up somewhere down the line, or people that are really trying to hop into a new esport while it's still kind of in its budding stage and make it really high. You got players like Grubby, Idra, LZ Gamer, Sheth, all these old StarCraft players. Grubby goes back to Warcraft 3, but are just big Blizzard fans, so they're moving on to this new title. And you've got, like, that guy, Gosu Zuma, or Zuna, whatever the fuck his name is. He was a League guy, right? He used to be a pro League player. He was on the It's Gosu team, then he was on, what the hell, that team that Noam saying was, I can't even fucking remember the name of all these LCS teams that I care about it so little. But it's become this weird melting pot of just like, yeah, I like esports. The game that I really liked didn't work out for me, so maybe this one will be fun. Let's have a go at it. I don't know if that's the best environment to build an infrastructure around a competitive game, but they announced Heroes of the Dorm. That's their big league, and I can give some credit to Blizzard for trying to do something different here. Basically, it's a tournament. It's a collegiate Heroes of the Storm tournament. It's in North America only, and undergrad and graduate students enrolled in colleges will be able to participate, and the prize money comes in the form of tuition. You can get up to $25,000 per year per player. That either goes towards college tuition or for paying off student loans if you're like, a senior in graduate school or something, or you've already got some student debt to mess around with. Really interesting idea. $450,000. That is a lot of money. That's a pretty big sponsorship. The other cool thing about it is it's going to be on ESPN. What the fuck? Of all the things on ESPN, I mean, obviously ESPN is interested in esports. The CEO or the president, whoever the big wig up top, made the statement about esports not being real sports, and they want to focus on physical sports and all this kind of stuff. That obviously happened. That's a thing. I meant to make this viewpoint a lot smaller so I don't lag. And there we go. So we know they're not super keen on esports, but we know that they're somewhat keen because they keep putting stuff on ESPN3. It's basically ESPN the Ocho, the channel that no one gives a shit about, but still it's mainstream TV. You can watch it, via cable. Apparently the round of 16, the round of 8, and the heroic 4 will be broadcast on ESPN for the first live televised coverage of a collegiate esports event on an ESPN network. Wow, what a precedent that is. Whoa. So Heroes of the Storm is still in closed beta. There is a Heroes of the Dorm website. It's just heroesofthedorm.com. As somebody pointed out earlier, it feels like they almost just came up with a cool name and then said, we got to make something work around this. Dorm rhymes with storm. Let's see. Can we connect the dots here? Can we start at the end and then just fill in the pieces to get there? Apparently it's happening really soon. You can sign up and get beta access until March 26th. So you have about 2 weeks to get your beta keys still. Then you go into online qualifiers. There's the top 64 play a big elimination bracket, single elim, in the middle of April. And then after that, the final 4 are on ESPN, and you have this televised finals event, I guess, sometime in late April or early May. So right around the time the Summit 3 is happening, Heroes of the Dorm is going to be wrapping up. Man, I'm not going to get to watch it. Bummer. Win big by filling out a fantasy bracket. Oh, yeah, there's going to be fantasy brackets, too. That's the other thing. They're trying to get the whole experience going. Anyway, it's a cool idea. I'll be curious to see how it works for Blizzard, what the viewership's going to be like, and what the competitive game is going to be like. I also wonder who's going to cast it. I imagine Kaldor is probably on the short list, as he's been one of the lead casters. It's a really fun game. I wish I was playing it more, but I've just been busy playing the Dotes, man. Giving it to the Dotes. They've got a cool website, so check it out if you're interested. Was on record saying esports is not a sport, saying instead it's competition akin to chess. Yeah, you're right. That is the direct quote. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, Jack September. Why did I say Jack September? It says back in September. What am I? Jesus, I cannot read and talk at the same time. So anyway, who knows? It's very interesting, though. It's a big step for Blizzard, and I can appreciate any esports initiative that tries to push esports into the mainstream. We've talked about Riot a fair bit on this podcast and how there's always this ridiculous heated dichotomy of League fans and Dota fans tend to be the most aggressive, but League fans are a bit more passive aggressive, and it's this big rivalry. But I'm glad that Riot is pushing our genre into the limelight, selling out the Staples Center, doing things that get people accustomed to the idea of a 5v5 3-lane game where the primary objective is to kill the final structure. I don't care about the nuances. I don't care about what champions or heroes or turrets or towers or whatever it is, your stronghold, your keep. it doesn't matter what the vocabulary is. Most of the people that this is reaching that I'm talking about don't understand what the fuck you're talking about anyway. I'm talking about shifting that paradigm, shifting that old school bias that video games are for dumb, fat neckbeards that want to hide away from society, fighting that old stereotype that video games are not a social experience, that they can't be helpful team building tools, ways to help people deal with all sorts of issues, depression, medical issues. There's a lot of benefits to video games and strategy and the huge dynamic of that social aspect. And the more this stuff gets pushed into the mainstream, the more that your average American, your average person, sports fan sees that esports is a real thing. There's this dedicated fan base around it. People can actually make full-time salaries doing all this video game bullshit. The more that gets out there, the more people there are that are kind of like, okay, I'm into this hip, cool video game thing. Look at all those crazy kids out there. At least they're not doing drugs. Oh, wow, that's amazing. You know, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. So I think there's just a lot of value in this kind of initiative, just for esports as a whole and the MOBA genre and as a whole as well. I think this is kind of the end of big innovation in the MOBA scene for the near future. You've got kind of the big four now, and I can't really imagine too many other ways you can take this concept of the MOBA, the multiplayer online battle arena, your action, rolled real-time arts, your ass faggots, whatever it is. What is it MOBA? Let me see here. Is it MOBA ass faggots? Is that what it is? There's some really ridiculous acronym. Yeah, here it is. The Aeon of Strife-styled Fortress Assault game going on two sides, also known as Dota, MOBA, or RTS. Yeah, that's the ass faggots. God damn it. I don't know how many other ways you can innovate on it. You've got League that really focuses on the casuals. You've got this cool Dota game that really focuses on the hardcore gamers that like denying and making other people's lives terrible. You've got Smite that's over there for the kind of MOBA first-person people that can still MMO first-person people that can still appreciate MOBAs, and also like League of Legends a little bit. And then you've got Heroes of the Storm, which is the completely different, objective-based, very team-oriented. Hero kills don't matter nearly as much as team experience and objectives. Kind of a MOBA, but not really. Still trying to figure out what it is. It's a weird love child. I don't know what other quadrant you can take. And I think at this point, it's pretty proven that you can't just come into the MOBA space with some sort of a dumbass idea of, yeah, we're going to have a smaller map and you share last hits in lane. Strife's going to be awesome. Buy it. It just doesn't work. You can't just come in with this made-up lore, this made-up bullshit, and expect people to care about your game. The only way you're going to be able to make an entry is the way that Blizzard did it, in terms of using lore that's already established, appealing to that nostalgia factor to get people into your game, use that as a marketing hook, and then kind of realize, like, hey, this game's really cool if you wanna hang around. So anyway, sorry, I got a message and got distracted there. So anyway, really cool. Happy that Blizzard is doing a cool, unique initiative. It would have been fun to see a $1 million tournament announced for Heroes of the Storm with crowdfunding, copying off of Valve, but they're doing their own thing. Blizzard do Blizzard. I like it. So we'll see how it goes. Like I said, it's coming up really soon. You got 2 weeks if that sounds like something you want to check out. What does the scene hold for people who retire because they can't stay at the top or they just get retired/old? Ooh, that is an interesting question. And that is a question that doesn't really have a great answer in terms of what are esports people going to do when they retire. And the reason there's no good answer is because esports is growing at a ridiculous rate. Like, technology increases logarithmically. That's a mouthful of a word, right? And esports is like expanding alongside technology. The big esports boom started when there was that enough innovation in technology that you could bring down the price on microprocessors, graphics cards, so everybody can have a home PC. And then, on average, as the prices come down for parts of the same quality, you can get better parts cheaper, and then you can stream from your house. That just wasn't possible 10 years ago. Your average computer wasn't good enough to do it. The software wasn't there. So the boom of Justin TV and XSplit kind of coincided with the boom of StarCraft 2 and that first real big push that esports made. Well, not the first, but the first real recent push that esports made into the mainstream. Then it kind of retracted a little bit. Then League exploded, and then we saw this kind of plateau, and then Dota started really exploding when Dota 2 came out and the internationals started iterating and getting better and better. So you look at the past 3 years, and the esports landscape has shifted dramatically. You started at this point where StarCraft was like the premier esport, Quake was the premier esport, where bandwidth was so expensive that you had to buy server slots. and like you had 500 people could watch this. You couldn't monetize those people. You were paying per viewer. You almost wanted less people to watch because it was cheaper for you as a tournament organizer. And now that is completely flip-flopped. Twitch found this market niche where they were able to turn something that people used to have to pay for to do for free, and now you get paid to do it. It's crazy how that paradigm shifted in a pretty short amount of time. That's a really good example of just how things are growing very rapidly, and the space changes, games die, new things happen, more money's introduced. It just takes one big player to come in and drop 7 figures to change the state of esports. Valve did that, right? They came in, said, boom, $1 million tournament, suck on that. So ridiculous to the point that many people didn't believe that it was real until it happened, and nobody flamed Valve for not paying out. People didn't believe it. Chinese teams didn't believe it. They thought it was a hoax. It was unbelievable at the time. This has all happened in the last few years. We're talking years. In most industries, it takes decades for this kind of change. So going back to kind of the core question, what are all these pro players going to do 5-10 years from now when they're no longer pro players? I have no fucking clue. 10 years from now, there's going to be full-time job, assuming esports is still growing and holding steady, there's going to be full-time job for coaches, way more jobs for support staff, statisticians, just general management. There will be a point where you'll need multiple managers on a team, you'll need travel agents. The infrastructure will grow, and as will the need for more people. So as people phase out, as a player, you're the hot commodity right now. There is a huge shortage of analytical casters. The best analytical casters are people that are or were pro players. And there's just a finite amount of those. Not everybody can be a pro player. And right now, the scene is booming. There's more money than ever before to be made as a pro player. This is the worst time to switch to casting. Even if you're someone like Hani, who's been on a series of teams that didn't work out, your team recently broke up, you don't know what to do, you're feeling down in the dumps, you might not go to TI5 as a player, you still are so valuable, and you can still stick around, wait for the next shuffle as long as you keep your skills up to snuff, and you can always make that transition to be an analytical caster. For these kind of players, it's so easy. In fact, it's too easy. It's boring. That's why a lot of them don't like doing it. They're taking their really advanced knowledge of the game, their in-depth, super deep understanding of mechanics and the way heroes work with each other and the way players move around the map, and dumbing it down for the masses who are a fraction of what they are in terms of personal skill. They literally have to dumb down their knowledge so that we can understand it. The plebeians that we are. It's just not exciting. It's just not fun compared to being in the action, the heat of the moment. Once you get a taste of that main stage, you just want more of it. And I can empathize with that as a caster. Once you cast in front of a live audience, you get that main stage at DreamHack, you just want more of it. You go, wow, that was really exhilarating. That was really fun. I had to poop the whole time, but I held it in because I was so excited. That's the kind of stuff that sticks with you, and I think that's how a lot of players feel in terms of taking that shift to casting. But it's players will be fine. You have value as a coach, you have value as an analyst. If you're good at presenting, you could have value as a host. I mean, there's a ton of things that you could do. I don't know. Even personal streaming seems like something that anybody that has a big following could sustain themselves. I mean, if you're one of these players that has like 50K plus Twitter followers, I don't see you having a problem doing a personal stream and doing cool stuff if you really want to create cool content and you really need money. I mean, look at Waga. That guy makes hand over fist from donations and subs and all this kind of stuff. That's just one guy. Just imagine if more people did that and it was more spread out and a little less ridiculous as the audience continues to grow, so there's more people there that want to donate money and subscribe. It's pretty crazy how quickly things will change and grow. So, okay, at the halfway point, some good esports talk, guys. That's pretty good. That's pretty solid. Thank you for that question. I appreciate it. So, I want to talk about something anecdotal. I've got 2 big key things to hit. We're going to talk about an anecdote, then we're going to talk about a documentary I just recently watched that kind of gave me the old brain fucky a little bit there. And if we have any time left, we'll probably open it up for some questions, see what y'all are thinking about. So, first up, I want to talk about taxes. It was tax season. I talked about this last go around. This is my second year filing as an independent. If you don't know what that means, when you're younger, you file as a dependent, meaning your parents file for you, or your guardians, whatever. I guess that's really the proper terminology. They file for you, and you're just your little tick mark on their tax return, right? And then you're just kind of mixed in with it, whatever. Usually because you don't have a lot of income, and it just makes sense. You're young and stupid. You don't know how to do taxes. The whole thing seems confusing. So last year, I moved out to California, got on my big boy pants, and that was the year my parents said, okay, we're passing the tax torch to you. Handle this yourself. Don't be a fucking moron. I said, okay, good advice. Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid, huh? I'll do my darndest. So last year, I've got all my W-9s, my 1099, W-2s, all these fucking stupid forms, all this shit. And I go to H&R Block, figure, they've got commercials. I like the color green. I don't know. If I don't have an accountant out here, fuck it. I'll try H&R Block. It was an okay experience. The first time around, I felt myself feeling like I'm kind of just watching this guy do data entry. I feel like I could do 90% of this myself, no problem. But it's those little things that last like 2 or 3% of just ticking the right boxes, putting the right numbers in those little forms. I don't know shit about taxes. So I felt okay, whatever. I was pretty happy. I got a pretty meaty return after what they took out. That's fine. So this go around, and the nice thing about H&R Block, 2 things. You're paying for someone else's signature on your taxes, saying that this person did it on my behalf, and if this shit is really fucked up, I paid a professional to do it. That gives you a little bit of a buffer. It gives you a buffer, a little bit of protection. If you ever get audited, that kind of stuff, you consulted a tax professional. That bodes well for you, right? Whatever. So I like having that safety net, and I'm just afraid I'm going to fuck it up myself. I like having a person who's a professional to give me advice and tell me what to do. So they give you this huge packet when you leave of just like all your whole return, everything you did, how you did it. So when you go do your taxes next year, you can show, look, this is what my taxes looked like last year. It's how much I made, how much I got off, so they can compare and contrast, what have you. So I'm all excited. I'm like, all right, I've got my H&R Block portfolio here. I've got all my forms. This is great. I'm going on in. And the lady was just confused as fuck. I couldn't believe it. Now, my taxes are a little confusing because ZyoriTV is a company. ZyoriTV is a registered LLC in New Jersey. Now, I see why that's confusing for accountants in California. They probably don't know much about the tax code in New Jersey, whatever. So that starts things off very confusing. Now, BTS is a company, right? We're an LLC, of course, no doubt about it, right? An official company. So this is already blowing her mind. She's like, okay, there's two companies here. Do you have 2 jobs? I'm like, okay, one of them is mine. I own it. That's the company I contract with. Notice all these fucking, 1099s here, right? My contracting. So what really cooked her noodle is I had my regular W-2 from BTS, then I had a 1099 also from BTS. I did contracting work before I was hired full-time this year, and then I became a full-time employee. Right? So it's different tax forms. One gets filed under my LLC, the other one gets filed under me from the company I work for. And this just totally blew her mind. She couldn't do it. She just kept, by the 5th time I said, no, ZyoriTV is the LLC that I own. Like I relocated, right? So you can write off your relocation costs. You drive across the country, that's for work, that's a significant cost. You write that off, right? So she tries to put the relocation under my LLC. I'm like, no, I relocated for the full-time job, the W-2. What is wrong with you? And I finally got a little lippy with her, and she gave me this look like, all right, you don't got to be a jerk about it. I'm like, I've sat here for an hour watching you fumble around with this software, and I'm at my wit's end. Just listen to what I'm telling you. This is not complicated for a tax. It shouldn't be for a tax professional. So all that stuff aside, we finally figure it out. I'm a little irritated that by the end of this, 90 minutes later, I'm telling her where to put the data into the software. She's like, oh, I think it goes in this form. I'm just like, no, I don't think that's right. I think it should go under Schedule A, and then I think I'm looking at, I have my old tax return. I'm just like, all right, how about Form 24B under Schedule A? And she's under, or whatever, and she's just like, oh, yeah, that's probably a good spot for it. And I'm like, I don't do this for a living. Why am I paying you? I'm basically consulting you to do my taxes for me. So this is the real kicker. At the end, you do all this bullshit, then they tell you how much it costs, which is a bit tricky because I'm like, well, I've already done this. It's already done, so I'm not going to get up and walk away at this point. It was 50% more this year than it was last year. I'm not talking about my return. I'm talking about how much H&R Block charged me to do my taxes. And I said to her, I'm like, look, you can see how much I paid last time. I have the packet right here. This is 50% more. And she's like, oh, well, you had a lot of stuff. I sold some stocks. I've got all sorts of investments. My taxes are a little bit complicated. I've got a lot of moving parts, whatever. And she's just like, oh, you had a lot of shit. I'm like, I sold maybe like 2 more stocks this year than I did last year. Like, it's not really that much. And she was pointing, she was like, oh, that was $20, that was $10. I'm like, you have come up with a grand total of like a 10% increase. We're talking about a 50% margin here. How is this possible? She was like, well, rates did go up. I'm like, 50%. Just think about the numbers. Think about the oh my God. it was so infuriating. So it got to the end, and I'm just, I don't have many reservations around, like, I try not to be, like, super obnoxious when I'm in public about cursing, but I have no reservations about using sentence enhancers when needed. She was like, okay, well, how would you like to pay an extra $35 for the H&R Block guarantee? And I was like, what does that mean? She was like, well, if something happens or you get audited, we guarantee this, and that means we'll be covered. I'm just like, well, I thought that's what I was already paying you for anyway. But I said, you know what, fine, fuck it. I will pay your tax to make sure this is guaranteed. Fine, $35. I don't care about $35 that much if it means I get audited. And this is, at this point, I'm like, this is probably fucked up. I have a feeling you did something wrong here. Your name is on it, fine. I'll pay you $30 for you to say, yeah, I proudly did this. I will sign this, So, but you get to the point where just like, I've already wasted an hour and a half of my time, nearly 2 hours at this point. I'm not going to walk away. But, so they advertise at H&R Block, like, oh, well, you don't have to pay anything. You can just take the money out of your return. I'm like, oh, well, that's good because they get the return and then they pay it to you, I think, right? So like, well, great. So can you just do that? She's like, well, that's an extra $35. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? You advertise this like it's your big thing. It's easier for me and it's easier for you. How is it you get the money? Just keep it and pay me less. Why are you charging me for that? And she's just like, oh, well, that's just the way we do it. She's like, if you don't want to pay the charge, you can just pay now, then just get your full return. I'm like, well, fine. I don't give a fuck. I'll gladly give you the money now and just take my... It doesn't really matter. It works out the same out of my pocket, but why are you nickeling and diming me? Like, you are getting me to the point of, I am not coming back here, and I'm going to tell everyone I know never to go to H&R Block because it was that terrible. Like, have a little... it just drives me crazy, man. Fucking corporate America, where you have this... It's just like sheep. Your business model is, all right, we're going to get a lot of these. We're going to make a recognizable brand. We're going to do national marketing, get it all over the place. So no matter where you are, you know that there's an H&R Block and you have that standard. We're going to franchise this bitch. We're going to do it McDonald's style. A Big Mac in California is the same as a Big Mac in New Jersey. H&R Block's going to follow the model. And it sounds good on paper. But then you get all these dipshit employees that don't know what the hell's going on. They don't know zeros from tens. And they're just fucking like, it's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. She's like, all right, hold on, I gotta go ask somebody a question. She gets them, they come back, and the lady's like showing her how to use the software in front of me as the customer. Like, you are not instilling me with a lot of faith here. I'm like, the amount of money they charged me, you might as well just hire an actual accountant that knows what's going on, that can give you personalized advice. I'm asking this person for advice. I'm like, okay, so these write-offs here, how should I file this? Is this okay? And she's looking at me like, oh, I think so. I'm like, what do you mean you think so? You're on a computer. Get to Googling if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Don't you have some textbooks or some manuals or somebody here that's not a fucking moron that can help me out with this? I don't know. I'm over it. I don't need to rant about my taxes anymore, but it really blew my mind. I felt like a total sucker. You ever go somewhere or buy something and you're really excited about it, and or you go to a business that you think is really cool. Like the first time you go to Disney World and you're blown away and you think it's awesome, and then you realize it's all just a cash grab and everything's super expensive and overpriced, and it just kind of, at the end of the day, you look at your wallet, you're like, man, I had 4 figures in here to vacation money, and it's all gone. I feel like I was swindled. I hate that feeling, and that's the feeling that I feel like I had, and I don't know. I just didn't like it. I need to find an accountant out here in California. But avoid H&R Block, folks. There's still time until you got to get your taxes in. If you haven't done it yet, do it. And, don't go there. It's terrible. It's really that bad. So it's just weird, though. It's very, very infuriating. The other thing that was very weird for me was learning that you can't write off dress clothes. And this was new. So I looked it up, and they weren't bullshitting me. Basically, the way it works is you can write off uniforms for work if it is a uniform that you can't wear on the street. That's what I say. And I said, well, what does that mean? If I work at McDonald's, I can't wear the uniform on the street? Sure, I could, what's to stop you from wearing that as clothes? They're like, well, it's specific, if you're a police officer, the example is if you're a police officer, you can't wear it when you're off duty, so you could write that off. I'm like, well, all right, that's a really extreme example of something that's super safe to write off. But I said, I bought suits. These are dress clothes to be used on camera. I work in broadcasting. These were actually bought for work. I bought this because I was like, I need more write-offs this year. I better spend some of this money. I don't really need new suits, but I'll buy some because, fuck it, I like being fashionable. I'm like, no, you can't write off suits. And I said, So you're telling me that news anchors and people that work in real-life broadcasting don't write off any of their dress clothes they use on camera? And then I thought about it and realized, well, no, but they probably have some other way that they're compensated. Like the company reimburses them, or it's part of their paycheck, or part of their pay or whatever. They have some sort of a bonus structure, or they just provide the clothes for them. So I thought about it and went, no, okay, maybe that's fair. But that was very disappointing for me to learn that you can't write off work clothes unless they're like, actual uniforms specific to that job, like a fast food joint or something. So that sucked. That was another disappointment, but I had plenty of write-offs anyway. So yeah, anyway, fuck that. Taxes, I'm glad it's over with. I get to wait another year, but the clothes are rented to news anchors. Oh, that's interesting. Probably sponsored by some fashion company. Yeah, the more I thought about it, the more I realized, they're even not being able to write it off doesn't really matter. There's still a bajillion ways that you can get like discount clothes or free really nice clothes. Even just exchange marketing. Like, all right, sponsor all of our clothes and we'll give you some discounted marketing. There's a bunch of ways you could do it. So it's a poor example, but it was still very frustrating. Okay, so pressing forward here, one of the last topics I want to tackle. I watched a new documentary. For those of you guys that listen to the podcast or now watch the podcast as we're video style, I hope the sync is better this week too, by the way. I know the video that I put out last week was super shitty in terms of sync, and I hope it's better. I don't know. I've been having weird issues with my PC and Flash. I've got a new power supply I got to put in this computer. I think my PSU is dying. My PC's locked up a few times. I've got a new hard drive as well I'm going to format, so I've got a whole laundry list of shit I've got to deal with. Anyway, if you've listened to the podcast, you know that I like documentaries. I'm a sucker for a good documentary. At the same time, I really hate bad ones. Kind of like how most people feel about stand-up comedy, I think, where I have some friends where I think, oh, you want to watch some stand-up right now? And they go, I'm in a really good mood, and it's a gamble. If this is a really amazing stand-up I haven't seen, I'm going to love it. I'm going to laugh hard. It's going to be great. But if it sucks or not the kind of stuff I like, I'm just going to be like, I don't want to laugh anymore. And then I'm just, it's going to ruin my mood. So that's how I feel about documentaries. Bad ones are so bad. A great example of a terrible documentary is that one about Nirvana that was on Netflix like 2 years ago. I was so excited. I was like, oh shit, a Kurt Cobain fucking documentary. This looks sick. And it's some like homegrown, like, oh, I made this myself. And it's this guy, and it's like everything that he did that sounded cool. He got to the part, and then it's like, I wanted to do this, but I couldn't. So here it is. Like, he found some old lady that had like one of the first like recordings of Kurt Cobain from when he was like in high school before he even started his band. And I'm like, wow, I kind of want to hear this. I bet it's really raw. It's on record. And he's like playing it, and then it just cuts to black, and the text pops up and says, due to copyright from Courtney Love, I was not able to play the audio from this. And then it cuts back, and he's like, but the lady let me listen to it. And I'll tell you, it was really interesting. And I was like, listen, I was thinking to myself, I give no shits about you as an individual. I'm watching this only because I want to hear Kurt Cobain. And there is a surprising amount of your fucking face and a surprising lack of Kurt Cobain's face. Fuck this shit. I'm turning it off, right? God, and it just makes me mad because I'm like, I just wasted 20, 30 minutes of my life, and that is terrible. It makes me mad that made it onto Netflix. Like, if that is the caliber of documentary Netflix is accepting, fuck esports. I'm going to go into documentaries and get a fucking movie on Netflix. It bakes my noodle as to how that shit even gets on there. Now, an example of a great documentary. Oh, the Bobby Fischer one. HBO. Everything HBO does is fucking good. Except that show Carnival. That show sucked ass. I don't know what the hell was going on with that piece of shit. They were trying to do Lost or just get too crazy with it, but terrible show. Didn't make any sense. No character progression. I just don't get it. They're showing Bush, but there was no, fuck. HBO documentaries tend to be really good. They did an amazing one about Bobby Fischer. They tell the whole story about back in the Cold War when he's fighting the Russians and his crazy like little mental quirks and how he's like hypersensitive to sound and probably super autistic, and he goes crazy from spending too much time by himself just staring at textbooks and memorizing chess strategies, and then the end of his life when he just goes off the deep end and he's just woo cuckoo and starts being anti-Semitic and all this kind of shit. Then Iceland saved that guy's life, man. If you have not seen that documentary, I think it's just called Bobby Fischer. I've linked it on my personal Facebook page a few times. It's really good. Even if you don't care about chess, even if you think chess is dumb, it's an amazing documentary that gives you a lot of insight into how important chess was during that time, that era when there was a lot of tension with the Soviet Union, and how serious it was for an American to come out of nowhere and the best world-class players it's really just an incredible story and insane genius. There's a lot of really interesting stuff about being a genius and an expert and what it takes and all this kind of stuff as well. That's the thing. A good documentary should be educational, teach you about something that's really cool, and at the end of it, it's so neat that you're like, wow, I just want to tell people about this. And then after like what I just did, I'm like, I just explained something really neat to you guys about Bobby Fischer because I'm just excited about how cool the documentary made it sound, right? Like Modern Marvels, that show's fucking awesome. They make bridges seem cool. I know bridges aren't cool, but they are cool, you know? So I watched this superheroes documentary. It's actually called Superheroes, and when I watched it, I didn't know it was HBO. If I had known that, I would have watched it a while ago. It's really weird. I'd love to see in chat how many of y'all know what I'm talking about. It's just called Superheroes. It's on Netflix right now, so chances are at least some of y'all have watched it. It got 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb, and what was it? I don't know what it got on Metacritic, but it's a decent rating. Here, I'll read the little storyline here. Quote, Superheroes will introduce us to several of our country's most famous masked heroes, including Mr. Extreme, a 33-year-old security guard officer by day, and a goon's worst nightmare by night. We'll follow Mr. Extreme on his nightly patrols through the streets of San Diego as he tries to stop evildoers and protect the innocent. We'll also meet the New York Initiative, a fantastic foursome of real-life superheroes living together that tackle crime fighting one Brooklyn borough at a time. Led by Zimmer, we'll watch as they take to the streets and try to lure criminals out of hiding with their controversial bait patrols. With over 300 registered superheroes in the United States, we'll definitely uncover the real-life superhero cultural phenomenon and discover what inspired these everyday citizens to take the law into their own hands as they try to make the world a better place and safer for all. Interesting perspective. So I don't know what drew me to this documentary, and I as soon as I realized it was about people that just like dress up as superheroes, like literally have like an alter ego like costume they put on and then go walk around at 3 a.m. in the city streets and just try to find somebody getting raped so they can beat the fuck out of the raper. You know, like that's what these people do, and they're fucking serious about it. Next level serious, like. Everything I do, it's like what I do for esports, except what they do for being a superhero. So cool premise. You know, I like learning about kind of subcultures and those kind of weird phenomenons. And you would expect it to be cringeworthy. You know right away some of the people's costumes are going to be terrible. Some of them are going to be hard to listen to. And you just know that going into something like that. There's going to be some nerd burgers on the stream. Or on the documentary. No doubt about it. But I actually found it difficult to watch. I'm not going to lie. I really just felt bad for the main characters because they seemed a little delusional. I got to a point in the movie where I was thinking, what are they going to do? Like, what are they actually doing? Like, they kept interviewing people. They're talking about, like, their philosophy, why they got into fighting crime, why they want to do good. Most of them were either abused as a child or they had some really traumatic experience. They're like, it was so bad, I never want this to happen to anybody else, so I'm committing my effort outside of work to, you know, be the best person I can and help people as much as I can. Be very selfless, you know, that kind of Mother Teresa-esque thing. And that's cool, you know, the backstory built up. And I'm like, so when does the crime fighting actually start? Because half of them were like super out of shape, you know, your typical nerd burgers. I'm like, what kind of crime are you really fighting? And most of them are just walking around. There's bop, 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 bop. Okay, no crime over here, all right, you know. So it's 50-50. Sometimes the cops kind of like them. Most of the time the cops just think they're annoying. You know, they show them talking to cops, and they're not afraid. They're all like, hey, officer, hey. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that recent rape that was going on. They'll just flag down cops and start asking them about recent crime reports and try to have like a dialogue and go back and forth. The group that I really liked was the Brooklyn group, the New York Initiative, the Fantastic Foursome. It was one girl and 3 guys, but they were serious. They were like super in shape. They were doing like ninja yoga. They wear really weird masks, but they're the ones that do these bait patrols. And it's actually pretty controversial because it's basically entrapment. What they do is take the really fit guy in the front. They're dressing him up like a flamboyant gay guy and just having him walk around by himself at like 3 a.m. in shitty parts of Brooklyn. And then the other 3 members of the team are like wired up via radio and they're on bikes like a block away. And if somebody comes and fucks with the guy that's like super flamboyant and gay, then they come in and make sure to protect him and beat the fuck out of the guy that's like beating him up. So like they interviewed a police person about a police chief or something. And she's like, that's like, at that point, like, are you really doing good? Like, you're not preventing crimes that would have happened anyway. You're baiting in crimes so that you have an excuse to be like a police type person. It's kind of weird. It sounds really shitty when you put it that way, but that wasn't really their real tactic. They were just kind of do-gooders. They're walking around. The one guy, he had a first aid kit. They found somebody with a skinned knee. They patched him up. That was good, right? They found a drunk driver who sideswiped a car. They called the cops. The cops didn't give a fuck, so they took his keys and then gave them back to him the next day. You know, they saved some lives. That's good shit. They actually did a little bit. I can appreciate what they're doing. They're in shape, you know. The guy's secret gadget, he's got like a super bright flashlight on his chest. I'm like, great, blind him. I like it. You got a flashlight. That's cool. That's not a superpower, but, you know, you're well on your way to having something useful. So, but then they start delving into the other more solo characters, and there's this guy named Master Legend. And apparently this guy is actually somewhat well known. He's been doing this shit forever. There's an article on Rolling Stone called The Legend of Master Legend that was written in 2008. I just dropped the link right here. 2008! That's 7 years ago. Look how young he is. Dude, the Master Legend is still going. He's still cruising out there. I forget, is he in Detroit? No, he's in Orlando. He lives in Orlando, Florida. And he's kind of crazy. He's actually like a legend. They have footage of him just walking around the street, and people come up to him like, hey, you're Master Legend. Hey, what's up? You're that guy that fights crime, right? And he's like, oh, that's me. Hey there, pretty lady. But there's obviously something a little off. He's got like the way he talks and the way it's like, there's something that's a little funky. And so you're kind of like, all right, at first you don't know what to make of anything. This guy is obviously pretty old. He's kind of weird. He's wearing this really shoddy costume. And they just keep showing him drinking beers. Like, he goes to his car, he's just like, a real man builds up a thirst that only a beer can quench, but you never drink to get drunk. And then they show him the next scene, he's just going into a bar. And he'll just go up to anybody. He reminded me of Black a little bit, where he can just walk up to anyone and just start talking. Exactly like Black will just walk into a room, see what you're doing, make a comment about it, and strike up a conversation. That's like exactly what this guy would do. Where he would go into a bar and just start talking to people. They're looking at him because he's wearing a face mask and he's like wearing a big ass fucking helmet. Let's pull up some pictures here. Master Legend. Let's see here. If you Google image it, here you go. This is him. Master Legend right there. This motherfucker right here. That's him. The Real Life Superhero Project. RealLifeSuperheroes.com. Is this his website? No, it doesn't look like it. It looks like it's another website that wrote an article about him. So I don't quite understand here. And this is there. They tell the story here. It's really sad. So at first you're thinking, okay, this is just some weird nerd that's really lonely, doesn't have any friends. And then you hear about his story where his parents were in the KKK and his dad made him fight other people. Like kids. They had like this kid wrestling circuit in this like back like KKK group, and he had to like beat the fuck out of his friends. And he said if he lost the fight, then his dad would lock him in a closet. He wouldn't get dinner that night if he didn't win. Like abused as fuck as a child. And then you're just like, God damn it. Like they kind of bait you into mentally having that discussion of just like, oh, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? What is this? This is cringeworthy. And then you hear his story and you just go, oh my God, I feel terrible. I can't like, why am I watching this? I'm just torturing myself right now. And he's just so positive and upbeat. It's really weird. I don't even know why I'm talking about this. I just feel the need to get it off my chest. It's such a strange phenomenon. I never realized there were so many people that want to be superheroes so bad. I don't understand why they just don't go to school and become police officers. Most of them said it's because they didn't want to have to follow the rules and they just want to go out and help people and not have to deal with a shitty boss. But I don't know. And then there was the other guy, the XJL, the Extreme Justice League guy. I forget where he was from, maybe Detroit or something. But he's talking about his Justice League. You know, he's like, oh, XJL. It's not the NFL, but it's the Extreme Justice League. Ah. So look here, it's popping up on my Google search, you know. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. And then as he's talking about it more and more, you find out that he's the only member of the Extreme Justice League. And I'm like, it's not really a league then. It's just you. It's just one person. Like, if you have a group of 5 people, you know, and you're like, this is our club. We dress up like superheroes. We do our thing. It's a social experience. You're grouped up. It's weird. People will probably make fun of you. No one understands it, but you're at least connecting with other people. You're relating. You're having a dialogue. You have some goals. I'm sure your league has some or organizational objectives. You know, that's awesome. But then when you find out it's one person and they show him, he's out on the street, he's got handmade flyers that he made with a pen, just handing them out to people. Hey, the Extreme Justice League, check it out. We're trying to help the world. We're doing good. And I'm just like, This is the saddest thing I've ever seen. This is just like a lonely ass dude wearing a costume, handing out flyers to make more friends. And I just feel terrible for him because they're all super nice people. Their goal in life is, I just want to do good. I wish I didn't have to work and my job could just be saving people from bad shit. Just devoting my life, doing some Mother Teresa shit. You know, it's like they want to do the Peace Corps without actually having to do the bullshit you have to do to be in the Peace Corps. But the maybe it's a lack of initiative, but still that main sense is there. I just want to do good. I just want bad people to go away, and I want to help good people and make sure good things happen. And that's such a nice, sweet thing. That's like, oh, you're a teddy. I just want to hug you. Just want to smooch you for loving humanity that much. I'm not that selfless. I'm focusing on me. I'm doing a podcast. I'm listening to myself talk for the last hour. That's not me, you know? I'm not out there just selfless. I ain't no Mother Teresa. That's not my game. I can appreciate other people who think that's their game. But if you're just the one guy, it's not a league, and it broke me down a little bit. It made me really sad just to see these really nice people that were just so lonely, and this kind of center point of, I mean, obviously you're the center point of ridicule. Like, look at this guy. This is the Extreme Justice League guy. Let's take a look here. He's the one on the left. Look at the extreme eyes. I like what he's going for, but Extreme Justice League, Evil Suppression Unit. It's pretty hardcore. I don't know. There's something I'm missing. There's something I'm fucking missing. So, anyway, you should probably watch it if you like to torture yourself. It's a pretty good documentary. The fact that it's HBO kind of makes me want to watch it again. You know, I wish them all the best. Now I kind of want to go to next time I'm in Orlando, I want to look around and find Master Legend and see what he's up to. I want to buy him a beer. You know, oh, you're that do-gooder guy. Let me get you a broskin. I'll hook you up. I got you. My man, Master Legend. Well, folks, that brings us to the close of another podcast. Wow, I'm really crashing from all this caffeine. I'm getting loopy here. Wow, 7:15 already. I can't believe this day flew by. So much Dota. I got to take a break. We've got Star Ladder coming up tomorrow. There's Star Ladder going on right now. There's Star Ladder coming out our asses. So much Star Ladder for the next month. There's going to be a ton of Dota 2. So I'm glad I'm able to squeeze in the podcast one. Again, thank you so much for everyone that joined us for this episode of the podcast, despite there being a lot of other streamers and Dota 2 content to devour. Certainly appreciate each and every one of you. If you enjoyed it, find the podcast on iTunes. I shall drop a link for you because that's what I'm good for here. And, of course, ratings and subscriptions on iTunes certainly help you find the podcast. You can find the feed, the RSS, over at ZyoriTV. And that is the home of the podcast. Everything else, you guys know what to do. It's all at the bottom of the stream. You all know how to find it. And certainly appreciate everyone coming to join us today. Another fun podcast. If you have notes, comments, suggestions, whatever about the podcast, feel free to head over to ZyoriTV. There is a contact. I was going to say communication. I have a contact link where there's just a form. I'm always all ears to hear questions, comments, something that I got wrong. Always happy to be proved wrong about subjects I'm bullshitting about, or at least caught bullshitting about. And always interested to hear comments or questions, stuff you guys want to hear me talk about. You know, I'm here to entertain, so let me know. You can always email me as well, Zyori@Zyori.tv. But until the next podcast, guys, be kind to yourselves and be kind to each other. We'll see you on the next podcast.